In the darkest corners of the city, secrets don't just hide, they suffocate. A desperate search for justice drags Maya into a world where every truth uncovered threatens to destroy her. What if the people you trust are the ones keeping you trapped in the shadows? As the danger closes in, will she find the courage to face the terrifying truth, or be swallowed whole by the darkness? If you want to uncover the shocking twists and follow Maya's fight for Insaf till the very end, hit subscribe now and drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is just getting started, and you don't want to miss what comes next. The night swallowed the narrow street whole, shadows twisting like whispered secrets between cracked walls. No one spoke of what happened here. The alley was a veil of silence in the heart of the city, where the forgotten lived and the broken dreams found shelter. But tonight, a faint cry shattered the stillness, cutting through the darkness like a blade. It was a desperate call, carried on the heavy air, pulling at the edges of every soul nearby. In the heart of this Andheri Gali, where neon lights faded and hope was a stranger, stood Maya, a young woman with roots tracing back to the bustling streets of Bangkok, now lost in the cold uncertainty of a foreign land. Her eyes held storms, and her hands trembled with the weight of a secret too dangerous to voice. She had come searching for justice, but what she found was a maze of lies, corruption, and silence thicker than the night itself. The people here knew the truth, but fear chained their tongues. The powerful watched with cold eyes, ready to crush any flicker of rebellion. Maya's only ally was a faded photograph, a glimpse of a life stolen, a brother vanished without trace. The picture was a lifeline, a thread she clung to amid the darkness. Each step she took echoed in the alley, as if the walls themselves whispered warnings. Behind every corner lurked eyes watching, waiting for her to falter, to disappear like the others. But Maya's heart burned with a fierce light. She refused to be swallowed by the shadows. She knew the truth was buried somewhere beneath the cracked pavement and broken promises. In the distance, a temple bell tolled softly, its haunting chime a reminder of a culture far away yet alive within her spirit. The blend of American grit and Thai resilience gave her strength, a bridge between two worlds where justice was elusive. Every clue she uncovered only deepened the mystery. A coded message in an old letter, a forgotten name whispered in fear, a handprint on a cold wall that didn't belong. Was the truth something the city wanted to hide, or was it a secret too terrible to face? The alley's silence grew heavier, and the night thickened as Maya approached the final crossroad. She could feel the eyes, not just watching, but waiting for her choice. Would she step forward into the unknown, or turn back into the safety of shadows? The answer hid in the silence, waiting for the dawn to break, or the darkness to consume everything. Her breath caught in the chill air as a figure emerged from the haze, a man whose face was half hidden beneath the brim of a worn hat. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged to these streets, someone who knew the alley's every secret and every lie. Looking for answers won't bring them to you, he said, voice low but edged with something harder, warning or challenge. Maya's eyes locked onto his, searching for a flicker of truth or mercy. I need to find him, she whispered, clutching the photograph tighter. My brother. Someone took him, and no one dares to speak. The man studied her, then nodded slowly, like a gate opening just a crack. Then you're already deeper than most, he said, and deeper means danger. He stepped aside, revealing a narrow passage, darker and narrower than the rest of the alley. Follow me, but know this, once you walk this path, there's no turning back. Maya's heart hammered, but the fire inside her refused to dim. She stepped forward, into the unknown, chasing a truth that might cost her everything. Behind her, the alley seemed to hold its breath, the silence waiting to decide if she would become another forgotten name, or the spark that would shatter the darkness forever. The passage swallowed her whole, the walls closing in as if the city itself was trying to suffocate her resolve. Each step echoed with a hollow sound, blending with the distant hum of sirens and restless city life beyond the shadows. Her guide moved with ease, like a ghost familiar with every twist and turn, but Maya's mind raced. Who was he really? Friend or phantom? The air grew colder, thick with the scent of damp concrete and something metallic beneath it, the unmistakable smell of blood. Suddenly, a faint whisper broke through the silence, a voice laced with fear and pain, echoing down the narrow corridor. Maya froze. The sound was hauntingly familiar, pulling at the edges of her memory. "Is someone there?" she called out, her voice trembling but steady. No answer. Only silence that pressed heavier than the darkness itself. Her guide stopped, turning slowly, eyes sharp and unreadable. "You don't know what you're stirring," he said quietly. A sudden crash rang out ahead, followed by a muffled cry. Maya's heart leapt. This was no longer just a search. It was a chase against time, against shadows that threatened to consume everything she loved. In that moment, the question that had haunted her since the beginning screamed louder than ever. Can justice survive in a place where truth is the deadliest secret? The narrow passage opened into a small, dimly lit courtyard, walls scarred with graffiti and stained by years of neglect. Maya's eyes scanned the space. Broken glass, discarded bottles, and the faint outline of something lying motionless near the far corner. Her breath hitched as she stepped closer, heart pounding like a war drum. It was a young man, face bruised and pale, eyes flickering open just as she knelt beside him. "Brother," she whispered, hope and fear tangled in her voice. He tried to speak, but only a hoarse rasp escaped his lips. Maya's guide crouched beside her, pulling a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. "This was found near him," he said, voice grim. Maya unfolded the note. It was written in a mixture of English and Thai, a cryptic warning carved in urgency. Insaf Ki Talash. It read, a call for justice, a plea for truth buried in darkness. Her brother's eyes locked onto hers, a flicker of recognition and something deeper, a warning. "Don't trust the shadows," he breathed before slipping into unconsciousness again. Maya's grip tightened on his hand, the weight of the alley's secrets pressing down. The fight for justice had only just begun, and the shadows were closing in faster than ever. A sudden noise shattered the fragile quiet. Footsteps pounding against the cracked pavement, urgent and relentless. Maya's guide stood quickly, eyes darting toward the narrow exit as the darkness beyond the courtyard seemed to ripple with movement. "They're coming," he said, voice low but fierce. No time to explain. He grabbed Maya's arm, pulling her to her feet, the photograph and notes slipping from her fingers. Her brother lay vulnerable, but there was no choice. The alley demanded she run or be consumed. They moved fast, weaving to the labyrinth of streets where every shadow felt alive, every whisper a threat. The question burned hotter with each step. Who were they running from? And what truth were they trying to bury? Behind them, the distant echo of voices and footsteps grew louder, the walls closing in like a trap. Maya's heart pounded. The search for justice had pulled her into a storm she wasn't sure she could survive. But in the depths of her soul, a single truth burned clear. Some secrets refused to stay buried, no matter the cost. They burst through a rusty gate into an abandoned warehouse, the stale air thick with dust and forgotten memories. Inside, moonlight filtered through shattered windows, casting fractured beams that danced over broken crates and tangled wires. Maya's guide moved toward a flickering screen set against the far wall, fingers flying over a keyboard with practiced urgency. Her mind raced. Who was this man really? Ally or pawn caught in a larger game? A sudden beat filled the silence, and images appeared. Faces, places, moments frozen in time, clues stitched together in a digital puzzle. There, hidden among the files, was a name, the one that tied everything to the dark heart of the alley. Maya's breath caught. The truth was closer than she imagined, but it came with price. Exposing could shatter everything she thought she knew. Outside, the night thickened, the city's pulse quickening as unseen eyes watched and waited. The question lingered like smoke in the air. Could justice ever rise from the ashes of betrayal? The screen flickered, revealing a photo that stopped Maya cold. Her brother, smiling once, standing beside a man she recognized from whispered warnings and cold threats. The same man who had haunted the darkest corners of the alley, untouchable and invisible to the law. Her guide's voice was steady but grim. "He's the key, the one who controls everything from behind the curtain." Maya's fists clenched, every nerve alight with a mix of fear and fury. How deep did this web go? How many lives were tangled in its threads? A sudden crash echoed from the entrance. Someone had found them. There was no time to hesitate. The alley's shadows were closing in fast, ready to swallow the truth whole. Her guide handed her a small USB drive. eyes locking with hers. This holds the proof. Insaf Ki Talash, the search for justice begins now. Maya nodded, heart pounding like a drum in the silence before the storm. Outside, the footsteps grew louder, and the alley waited, hungry for the reckoning. Maya dashed toward the back exit, every heartbeat echoing in her ears like a countdown. The cold night air hit her face as she slipped through the narrow alleyways, clutching the USB like a lifeline. Behind her, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. Harsh voices, heavy footsteps, a warning that the past wasn't ready to be unearthed. She paused at a flickering street lamp, glancing down at the small device that carried the weight of so many silent stories. The city breathed around her, indifferent and unforgiving. But inside her, a fire burned, fierce, unyielding. A promise that justice would find its way, even to the darkest Andheri Gali. Her eyes lifted to the skyline, where distant lights promised hope and danger all at once. The question lingered in the cold air. How far would she go to bring the truth into the light? The night held its breath. As Maya disappeared into the maze of streets, a shadow detached itself in the darkness, silent, relentless. The chase was far from over. The alley's secrets had woken a sleeping giant, and nothing could stop the storm now rising. Her phone buzzed, a message, cryptic and urgent. Trust no one. The real enemy wears a familiar face. Her breath hitched. The lines between friend and foe blurred into a haze of doubt and danger. Every step forward was a step deeper into a game where the stakes were life, death, and the fragile hope of Insaf, justice. Behind her, the city whispered lies, but ahead, the truth waited, waiting for Maya to decide if she was brave enough to face it. Maya's fingers trembled as she read the message again, the weight of betrayal sinking deep into her bones. Who could she trust when shadows wore familiar faces and every smile had a knife? She ducked into a crowded cafe, blending into the hum of voices and clinking cups. But the eyes watching from across the room were sharp and cold. Her heart pounded. Was this a trap or her only chance? The man approached, calm but dangerous, sliding into the seat opposite her without a word. "I'm here to help," he said, voice low, eyes searching hers for a flicker of belief. Maya's mind screamed caution, but the hunger for answers clawed louder. "Why should I trust you?" she asked, voice steady despite the storm inside. "Because I want the same thing you do. The truth buried in that alley." He slid a folded piece of paper across the table, a map with a single red mark glowing ominously. The game was shifting, alliances breaking and forming in the blink of an eye. And Maya knew, in Andheri Gali, the search for Insaf was a path lined with. Maya unfolded the map, eyes tracing the jagged lines leading deeper into the labyrinth she thought she knew. That red mark pulsed like a heartbeat, a promise, or a warning. The man leaned in, voice barely a whisper. "That's where you'll find the answers, and maybe the truth about your brother." Doubt twisted inside her, but the flicker of hope was too strong to ignore. She folded the map, steeling herself for what lay ahead. Outside, the city's noises dimmed, swallowed by the weight of secrets waiting to be unearthed. Maya stepped into the night once more, knowing that every shadow she crossed could either guide her closer to justice or drag her deeper into darkness. The alley watched, silent and patient, as the search for Insaf continued, a restless story without an ending, until the truth could no longer hide. The narrow street seemed to close in tighter as Maya moved forward, the red mark burning in her mind like a beacon and a curse. Her every step echoed with the weight of the past, the whispered prayers of 1,000 lost souls weaving through the air. She reached the crumbling facade of an old building, its windows shattered and boarded, a hollow shell swallowed by time. Inside, the faint glow of a single candle flickered, casting long, trembling shadows that seemed to breathe with secrets. Maya's hand hovered over the rusted door handle, hesitation and resolve clashing like thunder inside her. With a breath deep enough to steady the storm within, she pushed the door open and stepped into the unknown. The silence was thick, almost alive, until a voice, soft, familiar, broke through the darkness. "Why did you come back?" Maya's heart froze. The answer hung between them, fragile and sharp, the final piece of the puzzle slipping into place, or shattering everything she thought she knew. The voice trembled with pain, yet carried an edge of steel, a voice she hadn't heard in years but could never forget, because some wounds don't heal in silence. From the shadows stepped a figure, face partly hidden but eyes blazing with a mix of anger and sorrow. Maya's breath caught as recognition struck like lightning. It was her brother, but not the man she remembered. Time and suffering had carved lines of battle on his face, and behind those eyes lay a story darker than the alley itself. "Why did you disappear? Why leave me to fight alone?" she demanded, voice cracking but fierce. He looked away, pain flickering like a ghost. "I was trapped in a world you couldn't see, a world where justice was a lie, and survival meant silence." Maya stepped closer, the fragile distance between them shrinking with every heartbeat. "We have a chance now, to bring light to the darkness." His gaze met hers, fierce and haunted. "But the shadows are watching, and they will do anything to keep the truth buried." The room seemed to close in around them, the weight of the alley's secrets pressing heavy. And in that charged silence, the question lingered. Was justice worth the cost of everything they had lost? Before Maya could answer, the flickering candle guttered, plunging them into sudden darkness. A cold breeze swept through the room, carrying whispers that seemed to crawl from the walls themselves. Footsteps echoed outside, slow and deliberate, closing in like a predator circling its prey. Her brother's hand found hers, gripping tight, a lifeline in the growing storm. "They know we're here," he whispered, voice tense but steady. "We have to move, now." Maya nodded, heart pounding, as they slipped through a hidden door at the back of the room. The narrow staircase spiraled downward into a maze beneath the city, where light feared to tread and secrets festered like wounds. Every step took them deeper into the unknown, the walls alive with the echoes of past betrayals and broken promises. The question that haunted them both loomed larger than ever. Could they survive the darkness long enough to bring Insaf, justice, to the alley that swallowed so many? The air grew colder as they descended, the faint sound of dripping water echoing like a metronome counting down their time. Maya's fingers brushed against damp walls, each rough stone a reminder of how deep the secrets ran beneath the city's surface. At the end of the passage, a heavy door stood like a barrier between them and the truth, scarred with scratches and marks from countless desperate hands. Her brother hesitated, then pushed it open, revealing a room filled with flickering screens and scattered papers, a hidden nerve center pulsing with dark purpose. The glow illuminated faces frozen in surveillance, friends, enemies, and unknown watchers all caught in a web of control. Maya's eyes locked on one name, circled and highlighted, the man who had haunted their search from the start. "This is where the puppeteer hides," her brother said, voice barely above a whisper, "and where the fight for Insaf must begin." Behind the walls, the city's pulse slowed, waiting. The final reckoning was near, and the alley held its breath. Suddenly, the room was flooded with a harsh glare of floodlights, and a heavy metal door slammed shut behind them with a deafening clang. Maya spun around, heart racing, as the shadows shifted and figures emerged from the darkness, faces she had hoped never to see. The puppeteer had sent his hunters, and now the true battle for justice would unfold in the cold, merciless silence of the alley's underworld. Her brother stepped forward, eyes blazing with defiance, as Maya tightened her grip on the USB, the fragile thread holding the truth that could shatter everything. The air crackled with tension, every breath a countdown to the moment when secrets would either be exposed or buried forever. And in that suspended breath, the question hung heavy. Who would survive the night? A low murmur rose from the circle of shadows closing in, voices laced with threats and bitter promises. Maya's mind raced, every second stretching into eternity as she searched for a way out, a flicker of hope in the gathering darkness. Her brother stepped beside her, eyes sharp, scanning for weakness, for any crack in the armor of their enemies. "This ends the night," he said, voice steady despite the storm raging inside. Suddenly, a sharp clatter echoed as something fell to the floor, the USB slipping free from Maya's grasp, skidding across the cold concrete toward the feet of their captors. Time slowed, the fragile thread of truth teetering on the edge of oblivion. Hands reached out, shadows closing in, and Maya's heart screamed with the desperate hope that the search for Insaf was not yet over. A sudden movement, a flash of steel. cut through the tension as Maya lunged forward, her fingers snapping shut around the USB just before it disappeared into the darkness. The room exploded into chaos, shouts erupted, and bodies collided in a desperate scramble for control. Her brother pulled her toward a hidden panel, revealing a narrow passage barely wide enough to slip through. "We have to go now," he urged, dragging her into the shadows where light dared not follow. Behind them, the hunters cursed and cursed again, their rage a thunderstorm growing louder with every heartbeat. Maya's breath came fast, mixing with the pounding of her footsteps and the distant sirens wailing like ghosts in the night. The alley's twisted maze became their only sanctuary, each turn a gamble between salvation and capture. But as the city's lights faded behind them, the burning question remained. Was justice worth the price they were about to pay? They emerged into the chill of dawn, the first light cutting through the haze like a blade, painting the city in cold gold and shadow. Maya's lungs burned, her hands shaking as she clutched the USB, the fragile spark of truth pulsing in her palm. Behind them, the alley slept, hiding the ghosts and scars of night that would never be forgotten. Her brother turned to her, eyes weary but resolute. "We've only just begun," he said. "The Insaf we seek isn't just for us. It's for every lost soul swallowed by the darkness." Maya nodded, the weight of the fight settling deep in her bones. The city stirred awake, indifferent yet waiting, and the question lingered. How many more nights like this would it take to bring justice to the shadows? The dawn stretched thin, fragile as a whispered promise, but Maya felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, unseen, waiting for the truth to break free. She glanced at her brother, whose scars told stories no words could capture, and knew that their journey was far from over. Every step forward meant challenging the invisible chains that bound the alley in silence and fear. The USB was more than evidence. It was a spark that could ignite a revolution or consume them both in flames. As the city awoke around them, Maya's phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. "Beware the ones who smile in daylight. Insaf wears many faces." Her breath caught, the fragile thread of hope trembling in her grasp. The search for justice was a game with shifting rules, where every ally could be an enemy in disguise. And in the heart of Andheri Gali, the shadows waited, patient, hungry, and eternal. Maya looked up at the morning sky, the pale light filtering through the city's tall buildings like a cautious promise. She knew the path ahead was tangled, filled with whispers and hidden dangers, but the fire inside her burned steady, refusing to be snuffed out. Her brother stood beside her, a quiet strength after years of silence, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would carry the truth beyond the alley's suffocating walls, past the fear that kept so many silent for so long. The USB held more than secrets. It held the hope of countless lives swallowed by darkness, waiting for a voice to speak for them. Maya's fingers tightened around it, her heart steady despite the weight of uncertainty. As the city breathed around them, alive and indifferent, she whispered to herself, Insaf Ki Talash, the search for justice, was no longer just theirs. It was a fight of every shadowed soul who dared to dream of light. And in that fragile morning glow, a promise was made. No matter how long the night, the dawn would come. The days that followed were quiet but charged, like the calm before a storm no one could ignore. Maya and her brother moved carefully, sharing the truth with those brave enough to listen, planting seeds in a city too long asleep. Whispers turned to conversations, and conversations to demands. The shadows that once silenced the alley began to tremble. But with every step toward justice came new threats, reminders that the darkness fought back with teeth bared and claws ready. Maya felt the weight of the struggle settle deep in her bones, but she carried it like armor, a shield forged by hope and pain. The alley stories were no longer hidden. They echoed through the streets, a haunting call that refused to be ignored. And though the path was uncertain, every small victory became a light cutting through the night. The search for Insaf was far from over. But now, it was a fight shared, a promise carried by many hearts beating as one. One evening, beneath a sky painted with fading amber and the first stars of night, Maya stood at the entrance of Andheri Gali. The alley looked the same, dark, narrow, haunted, but now it held a different kind of silence. One waiting, watching, changed. Her brother beside her. She felt the weight of what they had uncovered. The lives touched, the truth finally breaking through layers of fear. They hadn't erased the shadows, but they had lit a candle in the darkness. Small, fragile, but defiant. Justice was no longer a distant dream, but a slow, steady flame, carried by those who refused to forget or be silent. Maya breathed in the night air, the promise of Insaf, the search for justice, alive in every whisper and every step forward. As the city's heartbeat continued, so did their journey, no longer alone, no longer lost. And in the quiet strength of that moment, the alley seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the dawn that would come always,